The Polestar 4 is new. It's different. It has no rear window, a lot of power, and a fully electric powertrain. In a world full of technology, the Polestar 4 asks us to adopt even more. But the question becomes, how much technology is too much technology? And is the Polestar 4 there?
This is the 2026 Polestar 4, a new coupe-style SUV with no rear window. That's right, when you get inside there and you turn around, it is pitch black behind you. And I'm Alanis King. Let's go for a drive and stick around for the end of this video to get this Polestar's full report card. Today, Polestar is an electric vehicle brand from Volvo, but back in 1996, the Polestar name began as a Volvo collaboration in the Swedish touring car championship. It's very common when you have racing history and you have racing going on to then take that name and put it on street cars so that people get excited to buy them. And in the 2010s, Volvo had some really cool Polestar performance models before pivoting the brand completely. In 2017, Volvo announced that Polestar would become its own standalone electric brand, and this aligned with what other automakers were doing at the time. The 2010s, 2020s, and even some of the late 2000s were all about new, unproven electric automakers in America. There was Rivian, Lucid, Lordstown Motors, Faraday Future, Fisker, all kinds of different names. And some of those names panned out while others did not. With Polestar, Volvo created this new mysterious EV brand, like a lot of the other EV brands that were coming onto the market at the time, with the backing of a proven manufacturer. And Polestar, which is currently funded by Chinese automaker Geely, had a new logo, new styling, new branding, and everything like that. And these vehicles looked familiar, kind of like Volvo's, but a little peculiar, in a good way. The Polestar 4 is the newest entrant in Polestar's lineup, making it currently a three-car company. There is the Polestar 2, which is a sedan, the Polestar 3, which is an SUV, and the Polestar 4, which is a mix between the two. And when this vehicle debuted, it had a bunch of technology. It had no rear glass, and it had frameless windows on the doors, just to make it look sleeker. And the no rear glass setup was very interesting because we're used to just looking out of a rear window when we drive. There is no rear window back here. Instead, you have this camera that then feeds into a digital rear view mirror that is fully a camera feed while you drive. Polestar says eliminating that rear window gives you more structural rigidity back here and also more headroom because you have this glass roof that stretches all the way over your head. And you do have a decent amount of headroom back here. I feel like this back seat is actually designed for people to sit in it. And you could probably fit back here up to about 6'2", but you would be very snug. You also have other comfort features back here. You have a bunch of vents, even though I do not see any controls for your own climates. You have two USB-C charging ports back here. You also have these not so great cup holders in this middle area when you pull this middle seat down. And do not show your kids this if you are going to buy this vehicle. I can stick my hand through here and literally touch the people in the front seat. I don't really know why. My last fun fact about this back seat is that if you like sticking your hands out the window, that's as far down as it goes. The obvious downside of not having this rear glass is that it makes you more technology dependent, and technology is wonderful when it works. But if something happens, if there's a glitch, a crash, or anything else, you don't have a rear window to rely on. And listen, I love using my phone and my laptop and everything like that, but when something goes wrong, it is really, really inconvenient. And in this car, you do not have a fallback if something goes wrong with that camera. You have pure blackness behind you, no view of what's out there. We have now made it to the point in the video where I tell you the power figures and everything like that this Polestar 4 has. And with most cars, we have front engine vehicles where we pop the hood and we look at everything. As you can tell, this Polestar 4 is a looker under the hood. You've got a lot of stuff going on. And we have a frunk. I'm gonna go ahead and say that's zero Lanises. We're not fitting anybody in there. But this Polestar 4 has 544 horsepower and 506 pound-feet of torque, as well as all-wheel drive. It also has a battery that can charge up to 200 kilowatts on a DC fast charger, and Polestar says that if you are charging at your fastest speed, you can go from 10 to 80% in 30 minutes. The EPA estimated range on this vehicle is 280 miles, and on the window sticker, it'll tell you where all the parts content is from. It says sources of foreign parts content, China, 96%. As we mentioned earlier, Polestar is currently funded by Chinese automaker Geely, so that makes a lot of sense. We also have 2% of parts content from the US and Canada, and the final assembly point is in Busan, South Korea. The new Polestar 4 starts at $56,400 American dollars for the single motor variant and $62,900 American dollars for the dual motor variant. This is a dual motor and it has only 2 paid options. The first paid option is those $1,800 21-inch wheels. Then we have $1,300 metallic white paint called Snow. After options and fees, the total price on this particular dual motor long-range Polestar 4 is $67,400 American dollars. The exterior options on this Polestar 4 are very interesting because Polestar is known for very neutral exterior colors and a lot of diluted ones as well, just like we have this white right here. And Polestar on the 4 on the current configurator has one included color at no extra charge. It is a gray color called Lightning. After that, we have a selection of what's called metallic colors. These are whites and grays and blacks, and they are a $1,300 charge, just like this white paint. Then there's another category called matte. This is a dark gray and a gold option for $3,000. And I was just so jealous when I saw the gold option because I've only ever had white and gray Polestars. And man, it would have been so cool to get a gold one for this review. When I review Polestars, because I know that they are going to come in a very neutral color, I always make sure that I pick out a really bright outfit to wear because it gives you something fun to look at. And this outfit, this jacket particularly, is from our partner, Homefield Apparel. Homefield has all the coolest officially licensed sports apparel, whether you want NASCAR or college sports or some pro sports or the Indy 500. Homefield has the best stuff. I wear it all the time, whether I'm on camera or not, and I absolutely love them. So if you want to check out this jacket or anything else, you can go to homefieldapparel.com. We have now made it to my favorite part of any car review, which is how many Atlantises can fit in this Polestar 4's trunk. While I get into a trunk, I like to talk about a vehicle's key. And in general, people just aren't going to be using a key on a Polestar 4. They're going to be using digital access or the key card that Polestar provides. However, this little key thing right here, it's a box. It has no buttons on it, and I don't love the material that's on the outside. It looks nice, however, it is a really easily scratchable material, so if you touch it, it's gonna have scratches all over it, like it does right now. And when you have a key that's a box, man, I just want some buttons. Maybe that makes me old, but I just can't stand when I'm walking away from a car and I don't have buttons to press to be able to lock it or unlock it or open the trunk area or anything like that. I'm tired of boxes, man. No box keys, please. Here we go, no window. Ooh. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna say this is 2.5 Atlantises and the lights just went off, so it's really dark in here now. It's time to drive the 2026 Polestar 4, and I want to talk about a few different categories of things while we're driving this car. First, I want to talk about styling and comfort, then I want to move to controls, and then I want to move to actual driving experience. We will start with the styling and the comfort. The exterior of this car, I think, looks nice and upscale. However, I don't think it's truly beautiful. I think it looks useful and it looks like a car that you would take to work and you would feel nice about, but there's nothing that just screams, wow, that's stunning to me. One thing that does scream at you on the exterior of this particular Polestar 4 is the fact that it has a giant label on it that says expert experience. And this is so Polestar, because Polestar labels everything. It'll label the seats, it'll label the floor mats, it'll label the lights, it'll tell you what everything is. And the fact that it says expert experience, it just makes me think that this was used for an event and they didn't take the label off. So I'm just driving around town with a car that says expert experience, which I guess makes me feel okay about myself, like I'm an expert. Inside the car, I feel the same way as I do about the outside. It's nice, the quality is great, but it's not truly beautiful. And I think some of this has to do with the fact that this is a black interior. It is very difficult to make a black interior look truly beautiful and inspiringly beautiful because there's just not a lot of contrast. This interior has amazing materials, but I just don't look at it and go, this is an artistic interior. And some of that is the color. Some of that is the fact that when you have a modern EV like a Polestar, the vibe they're going for is simplistic and minimalist, kind of that style that Tesla started in the early 2010s. It's just kind of the market for this car. They want a more minimalist look a lot of the time. However, I think that combined with the black, it just makes me go, this is a nice interior. These are great materials. I love the dashboard material that looks like it just glitters in the sun. The door cards have this rubberized material on them that feel really durable. And then you have the silver accents in here that are brushed silver, and they look great. They're just not stunning in the way that I wish they were for $70,000. All of the materials inside of this Polestar 4, I'm a big fan of, from the way they feel to the way I think they will be durable over time. But the most interesting material in here to me is the seating material. Polestar calls this seating material microtech, and a lot of the times when you're in a Polestar car, you'll see labels or you'll see advertisements about the fact that the materials are vegan and they're made from recycled materials and things like that. And these seats, they feel great. They feel almost like leather, but just slightly different, slightly more like fabric than an actual leather would. And I am very interested to see what happens to these seats in the next 15 to 20 years. I buy pretty much exclusively 20-year-old vehicles. And often when you're dealing in 20-year-old vehicles and you look at interior photos, the leather is usually cracked and smashed and just hasn't been kept soft and taken care of because it requires upkeep. What I am really interested to see is with a material like this that feels almost like leather, much more like leather than cloth seats would, how it holds up over time and what the care is like over time. What's this going to look like in 20 years? I am very curious, and if it holds up well, I think it could do really well in the used market. The last thing I want to note about interior styling, since we already talked about the back seat earlier, is the fact that we have mood lighting running through this car. And mood lighting is really popular in modern vehicles. The fun thing about this mood lighting, though, is we have a strip that goes around, and you can click ambiance on your screen. And then your mood lighting corresponds with a planet. So I have Venus on right now because it's pink and I like pink. But you can go sun for orange. Then you can go Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, and you get these different colors. And there it is, right there on the screen. There is a really funny little animation that only pops up sometimes on the screen, which is why I had to catch it right there. That is what looks to be a Polestar flying through space, which to me is a Tesla joke because they shot a Tesla Roadster into space. Now it's time to talk about the controls in this Polestar 4. And like you probably see in every modern Polestar or Volvo review you watch, much of this vehicle is controlled by a central screen. And a lot of people don't like big central screens. They want physical buttons and stuff that they can hit with their hands. And I totally respect that. I get that. I feel that way a lot of the time. However, I will say that the Polestar and Volvo screen setup is so good and has been so good for a long time. It is very well laid out. It is easy to find the things you want to find. You have static climate controls that stay along the bottom of the screen so that they don't move and you know where they're at. And also it just responds so quickly to what you want it to do. Any control that you need in your everyday life is going to be very intuitive to find on this screen, even if you've never used it before. The only time you're going to have problems finding something in this screen is if it's something more niche that you don't need every day. Like if I want to look and see where the odometer is, sometimes it'll show me on my instrument cluster, but aside from that, I do have to dig within the screen to find it. I actually couldn't tell you the way to do it, even though I found it before, because that's not so intuitive. But if you need daily controls on this screen, they're very, very easy to find, and I like that a lot. And despite having a screen control almost everything in this car, one of the few physical controls you have is a volume knob, and I am all about this because I firmly believe that cranking a volume knob in a car when a song you like comes on is a major part of having a car and having the freedom to control your experience in your car. And I love that when I control this volume knob, not only does it look nice and feel nice, it makes a clicking noise when I turn it up and down, which just really adds to the experience. One unfortunate thing that I have experienced in this Polestar 4 that I cannot recall experiencing on other Volvos or Polestars is the fact that when I get in and out of the car, for some reason, it will disconnect from my phone. It will either fully disconnect from my phone and it won't realize that my phone is in here, or it will turn off CarPlay on my phone, but it'll keep the other Bluetooth attributes. It'll keep the music and the phone and stuff like that, but CarPlay won't come up. So I'll have to go into settings and I'll have to turn CarPlay on again. This has happened probably 5 or 6 times in my few days with the car, and I do find that odd. I think there just might be an issue with the programming because my phone doesn't do this with other screens that I've worked with. One thing I love though is these turn signals on this car. So when you click the turn signal, either way, if I click my left turn signal or my right turn signal, those turn signals will make their noise on the side of the car that you are turning toward. So if I do my right turn signal, my passenger will hear it more loudly than I will. If I do my left, it'll click over here. If I turn on my flashers, it'll click on both sides. And the turn signal sound is so crispy. It's like if you take 2 smooth rocks. You know when you go to a truck stop in America and they have those really smooth rocks that kids buy? Ooh, I would buy some of those right now if I could. It sounds like hitting 2 of those together. It is crispy and it is nice sounding. When you turn on that turn signal too, you're also using your rear view camera because you do not actually have a rear window. And something you notice when you turn those turn signals on is that the camera, which offers you a wide field of view, will turn slightly toward the turn signal that you are turning on so you can see more that way. Now, an issue I do have is I am so conditioned to look over my shoulder when I turn on a turn signal. You've probably seen it if you watch my videos, that I will do that anyway, and I will just see a wall of blackness and I'll go, oh, that's surprising. I wasn't expecting that. I still haven't gotten used to it, but if you owned the car, you absolutely would. My last note about controls in this Polestar 4 is one that I think actually needs to be addressed immediately in the software. And that is the fact that when I park this car and I take off my seatbelt to get out of the car is still on because you typically don't physically turn off and on an EV. You have the option to turn it off if you want in the screen, but it turns off itself. So when you park and you're going to get out of the car and you take off your seatbelt to get out of the car, it'll do a seatbelt ding. And that is so weird. Usually you use a seatbelt ding to indicate, hey, you've put your car in drive or reverse or you're moving and you don't have your seatbelt on. That's fantastic. We need to warn people when they don't have their seatbelts on. However, when you get to the grocery store and you put your car in park and you're getting out of the car, I have never had a vehicle ding at me while taking off my seatbelt to leave the car after a drive because they're not programmed to do that. For some reason, this particular Polestar 4 is programmed to do that, and it is a very loud and distracting ding, and I do think it needs to be fixed in the software because it's just not correct. Now let's talk about driving the Polestar 4. This vehicle drives very well. The steering ratio feels super quick. It responds to you really well. The suspension is exactly what you want from a luxury vehicle in that you can feel when the texture of the road, or when there's a giant bump and it changes underneath you. That's fantastic. You want to be able to feel what's underneath you without being bothered by it. And that is exactly what you get in this vehicle. It sucks up that feeling so well to where you can understand what's below you, but you are not at all inconvenienced by what's below you. When you are driving quickly on the highway, you don't have a lot of road noise, you don't have a lot of wind noise, and some of that wind noise has to do with the fact that this car is just shaped in a way where the wind flows over you really beautifully. A lot of times when I'm in a car that has a really upright windshield and an upright just shape to it, the wind hits you and makes a lot of noise. This vehicle, it's quiet, it's comfortable, it's great for long drives, especially when you turn on the pilot assist and you can keep it lane centered and everything like that. And then when you want to absolutely hit the pedal, this thing rips. It is very common when you're in an electric vehicle to have that instant torque and have a lot of power just immediately available at your feet. And that is the case in this Polestar 4. It's not the fastest EV I have ever driven, but it is very fast compared to what a normal person thinks a car is. So you hit that pedal in performance mode and it pins you back. My foot didn't even fully hit the floor, and you saw how my head pinned back against this seat. This thing is so quick that when you put it in performance mode, it will chirp the front tires a little bit to get itself going because it is fast, and that is so cool. That's so much more power and so much more of a party trick than any normal person needs, and yet you have it in this vehicle. And it's pretty fun, honestly. Something I find really interesting about the driving experience in this Polestar 4 is that it has wonderful lane centering assist, which is when the vehicle uses its cameras and its radar to center itself within the lane without you having to put input into the wheel. It's great for long drives, it's great for the highway. I love using it. And basically what happens when you have lane centering assist is vehicles have different ways of seeing if you're paying attention to the road. You have some hands-free systems, which just track your eyes. You have some hands-on systems. This is what you get in a lot of vehicles that measure when you put a little bit of torque into the wheel, and they also follow your eyes to make sure you're paying attention. And then the step in between those two, in between actually having to hold the wheel and not having to hold it at all, is a capacitive wheel where you just have to rest your hand on the wheel and you don't have to add torque to it. What's so interesting is that in most vehicles, when I test for a capacitive wheel, it's very easy to tell if the wheel is capacitive. It's a little harder in this Polestar 4. I believe it's capacitive because I was able to rest my hand on the wheel for quite a long time while using lane centering assist. But then if the vehicle determines that you need to actually pay more attention in its mind because maybe you looked at the screen a little too much and it didn't like that, it will not just let you put your hand back on a capacitive wheel to show that you're paying attention. It will actually require you to add torque to the wheel, which is very interesting. And I think basically what we're dealing with here is probably a capacitive wheel, but once you get in trouble, you have to add a little bit of torque, which is a very odd middle point. The last little driving note that I have on this Polestar 4 is that unlike the Volvo EX30 I drove a few months ago, this Polestar 4 does not have a cruise control limit. When I had the Volvo EX30, I don't know how many months ago, and I had on cruise control, it was very interesting to see that the cruise control would not let me set it above 80 miles per hour. Because in Texas, we have some fast roads. There is a toll road near Austin that is 85 miles per hour, but in the EX30, if you want to use cruise control, you're not going 85. This does not seem to have that same cap that the EX30 had, so if you need to go on that 85 mile per hour toll road, you're good. And overall, I really like this Polestar 4. It's a great driving experience. I think the technology is super cool. The infotainment screen works fantastically. The materials are wonderful. I'm very interested to see how people feel about the exterior and interior design, and if people are able to get over their fear of not having a traditional rear window. That to me will be the determining factor on if this vehicle is successful on the market. However, even if a lot of people don't go for that lack of a rear window in actually purchasing this vehicle, I do think it accomplished some sort of goal in that it got people's attention. Polestar was able to say, hey, we got rid of a rear window. Look at us. And maybe someone didn't buy this car without a rear window, but maybe they looked at other Polestars, and that was a win. Now that we've driven the 2026 Polestar 4, it's time to give it a grade. Welcome to Alanis's report card. The exterior on this vehicle gets a B. It looks like a Polestar. However, I don't love it and I don't really dislike it, so I'm just giving it a very middle grade. It looks decent, it looks upscale, but it's just not my favorite thing in the world. The interior on this Polestar 4 gets a B+, and I will say I really like that interior. The materials are super nice. Everything is laid out well. The infotainment screen works great. However, I think with the black color that we have in there, it's just too basic for me. There's nothing in there that feels super special. The performance on this Polestar 4 is an A-. Everything is great. It's as fast and as comfortable as you would want it to be. I'm just taking a little bit of points off for the fact that it doesn't have a super long range at 280 miles, but it charges quickly, so you will be fine. The value, in my opinion, is a B, and that is mainly because of that interior. The interior is nice, however, there's nothing in there that just feels beautiful and stand out and worth $70,000 because you look at it and it feels super nice. So because of that, I would probably go for a cheaper EV than this one. Would I take this Polestar 4 on a road trip? Absolutely I would. It's super comfortable, it'll charge fast enough to where it'll be totally fine that the range isn't the longest in the world, and you'll just have a nice time in there. And overall, this Polestar 4 gets a B+. I think if the inside were a different color or it had just a few more features in it that felt really pretty and beautiful, that would make all the difference.
The Polestar 4 is wicked fast, wicked clever, and wickedly confident in removing its rear glass. The result of that mixture is a high-quality EV that states its luxury but doesn't scream it, much like any other Polestar product.
The Polestar 4 is a really, really good driving experience, and apparently the person experiencing it is an expert. That sounds like a win-win to me.